Boosie Badazz, once celebrated as one of the most resilient and unfiltered voices in hip-hop, now finds himself standing at a crossroads darker than any stage he has faced before. For years, he has carried the weight of the streets, the expectations of fans, and the eyes of a system that has never stopped chasing him. His music spoke to survival, to overcoming impossible odds, and to standing tall in a world determined to break him. Yet now, after years of legal battles, appeals, and brief moments of relief, Boosie is once again staring into the jaws of a federal sentence that could lock him away for nearly a decade. It is a cruel irony that while he should be embracing the joy of new fatherhood, welcoming the tender moments with his newborn child, he is instead preparing for the grim reality of separation, time lost, and an uncertain future. The story of Boosie's trial is not just about one man facing the consequences of the law. It is about a legacy, a rivalry, and the merciless way in which his pain has been turned into entertainment. When news broke that Boosie had accepted a plea deal, the hip-hop world froze. For some, it was a shocking revelation. For others, it was the outcome they had been predicting for years. Boosie himself admitted that he was tired of fighting, tired of pushing against a system that seemed built to see him fall. He confessed that he had no strength left for another trial, no energy to gamble against the overwhelming weight of the federal government. His words carried exhaustion, a tone of surrender laced with prayer. This was not the same Boosie who once stood defiant against critics, ready to clap back at anyone who dared challenge him. This was a man battered by the process, broken by years of surveillance, indictments, and the endless cycle of lawyers and courtrooms. And in that very moment of vulnerability, when Boosie revealed that he had finally bowed his head and accepted the deal, his longtime antagonist Charleston White emerged, not with sympathy, but with cruelty. Charleston White has, for years, made it his personal mission to shadow Boosie's every step. Where others in hip-hop saw a peer, Charleston saw a target. The moment the plea deal was announced, Charleston went live, his face lit with a grin, his tone filled with mocking delight. To him, this was not tragedy. It was comedy. He declared that Boosie's fate was sealed, that God himself had turned his back on the rapper, and that Boosie would never escape the destiny Charleston had predicted for him all along: a return to prison. Charleston's words were not casual insults. They were sharpened with intent, meant to cut deep, to humiliate, to remind the world that he had long prophesied Boosie's downfall. He mocked Boosie's newborn child, saying that the rapper would not see the baby grow, would not hear the child's first words, would not be present for the milestones of life. He spoke as though he were delivering a cruel sermon, declaring that Boosie's collapse was divine justice, that the streets had no God, and that faith would not save him now. The rivalry between these two men did not begin with this case. It goes back years, to moments when their paths crossed in public discourse and the lines of disagreement hardened into personal war. In 2022, when Kanye West stirred outrage with his White Lives Matter shirt, Boosie spoke out in defense of the culture, condemning Kanye's actions as disrespectful. For many, Boosie's words resonated, offering clarity in a storm of controversy. But Charleston White seized the opportunity, lashing out at Boosie for daring to speak on the matter. It was not enough for Charleston to criticize the rapper. He dragged Boosie's family into the fray, mocking his son Tootie Raw and ridiculing his legacy. The conflict spilled over into other names, with Charleston even targeting T.I.'s son, King Harris. From that point forward, Charleston's attacks became relentless, no longer confined to music or opinion. It became personal, vindictive, and fueled by an obsession to tear Boosie down at every opportunity. As Boosie's legal troubles mounted, Charleston seemed to hover like a shadow. Whenever news surfaced of an arrest, an indictment, or a court date, Charleston was there, amplifying the story, mocking it, turning it into content. He built a persona around being the loudest critic of street rappers, the man unafraid to expose hypocrisy, the troll who thrived on pain. Yet beneath the surface, there was a darker pattern. One of a man who did not simply comment on events but seemed to relish them, as if he were waiting for each stumble to confirm his worldview. His obsession with Boosie was not casual trolling. It was ritual humiliation, a campaign to strip away dignity piece by piece. For Boosie, the weight of this rivalry added another layer to his already heavy burden. Facing federal charges was crushing enough, but to have his every move mocked and twisted in public was a torment of its own. In interviews, Boosie admitted that Charleston was dangerous, not physically but strategically. He recognized that Charleston had built a reputation for working with authorities, for filing reports, for using the very system Boosie was fighting against as a weapon. Boosie explained that engaging Charleston was too risky, that a single misstep, a single threat, could be used to tighten the noose around his neck. It was a rare moment of caution from a man who had built his career on boldness, a sign that even Boosie knew the stakes had shifted. The weight of Boosie's struggle is magnified when you consider his history. This is a man who has survived what few could. Baton Rouge, with its violence and unforgiving streets, tried to swallow him whole. He faced charges that could have ended his life, and yet he emerged time and again, scarred but standing. He built a career from those scars, transforming pain into art, survival into anthems. But the federal system is different. The charge of being a felon in possession of a firearm is one of the most unforgiving in the book. For others, it is a near impossible battle. For Boosie, with his past, it becomes almost insurmountable. He knew it. His lawyers knew it. And so he made the choice to fold, to accept the plea deal, to trade hope for certainty, even if that certainty meant years lost. Yet while Boosie prayed and prepared, Charleston White celebrated. He went online, raising his glass, declaring that the streets had lost and that God had delivered justice. His words spread like wildfire, sparking debate across social media. Some fans found themselves reluctantly agreeing, arguing that Boosie had tempted fate for too long and that this outcome was inevitable. Others were disgusted, calling Charleston heartless for wishing death on a man already facing so much. The divide was sharp, and yet Charleston thrived in the chaos, feeding on the attention, ensuring his name remained tied to Boosie's downfall. This is what makes the story so haunting. At its core, it is not just about a rapper going to prison or a troll mocking him online. It is about two men locked in a battle of narratives, one clinging to faith and family, the other weaponizing cruelty as entertainment. It is about a culture that watches pain unfold in real time and debates whether to condemn it or consume it. Boosie Badazz, once the defiant voice of the streets, is now the weary father staring down a decade of absence. Charleston White, once a forgotten figure, has reinvented himself as the man who dances on the graves of legacies. Together, their collision tells a story larger than either of them. A story about hate, resilience, and the unsettling truth that in today's world, one man's tragedy is another man's stage.